Good morning. Good morning, everyone. David Severance here, filling in for Chirag today. Nice to have you with us. Good morning, Jovanka from Chicago. Hope I got your name right.
It's actually Jovanka. The J is
Jovanka.
pronounced
Thank
like a
you.
Y.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. We'll give everyone just a moment to hop on, then we'll begin.
Hello?
Hello, I hear you. Is that you, Keith?
Yes, how you doing? My volume was down. I'm sorry.
I'm David.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Nice to see you.
Same here.
All right, let's get started. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. If you don't know me, my name is David Severance. I am one of the coaches here at CSC. Chirag and I have worked together since he opened the business. Actually, before he opened the business, he was a client of mine. I was his coach for a while. And when he started CSC, he asked me to come along and help him with some of the things that he knew many of you would be facing. I've worked with real estate agents since 2016. I've worked with other salespeople for the last 25 years in various businesses around the world. And since I've been at CSC, Chirag and I obviously are coaching some of you one-on-one. I've done calls like this from here and there over the last 4 years. And Chirag and I co-facilitated the $1 Million Mastermind program that we previously ran for agents with $1 million GCI or more. So I'm delighted to meet all of you who don't know me. Chirag asked me to step in this morning. He had a little bit of a family emergency, but it's something he needed to take care of today. Everything's fine. He'll be back on the regular schedule. So sorry he couldn't make it with you this morning. So he asked me to step in and share some of my thoughts on objection handling. Chirag and I, we really agree on a lot of the philosophical approaches to how a business ought to be run and how people can find success. But our backgrounds are quite different. I've never been in the real estate field actually myself. And I've worked with airlines, I've worked with tech companies, I've worked with pharmaceuticals, I've worked with car manufacturers, I've worked with banks and other finance companies, a whole bunch of companies in the United States and around the world, and share that experience with my clients in ways that are a little bit different from Chirag. So I'm going to talk a little bit about handling objections today, and I'm going to think about it in a little bit of a more broad way, perhaps, than we typically do. If you think about handling objections, you might be immediately thinking about, the pitch. Somebody throws something out at you in the pitch, and you need to figure out a way to respond to it. I'd like to think today a little bit about objections more broadly. That is, any time in the relationship, including a pitch or later on, where the client may push back on something or may have express some kind of frustration with something that the person is saying, all is not right in my world. I want to think about objections from that particular broader lens. So I'd like to start by just asking everyone to just put into the chat something brief about a situation that you faced with a client where you didn't know how to respond, or maybe it's a typical situation that you typically face. It could be a classic objection over, let's say, commission or something like that, but it could be something else that stumped you a little bit. Just put a word or two, a couple of words into the chat, and we'll talk about a couple of them a little bit later. I'd like to share a few slides with you in the meantime, and then we can talk about it a little bit afterwards. Commission versus value, price, staging resistance. Sure, that's a good one, right? Shouldn't we list at a higher price? Yes, of course. Price, definitely a big one. So these are all common ones. And what I like about some of these are that you're raising situations that may happen at the beginning of the relationship, but others that may happen quite a ways down the relationship, right? Like they've already chosen you, they've already signed the contract, you're working with them, and there's some kind of a, not conflict, but some kind of an objection pops up during the course of the transaction. And so as we think about objections today, let's think about any time from the very beginning when you start working with somebody all the way to the end. If they push back on something or something that's they're expressing they're not quite comfortable with, how do you handle that? So I'd like to share a few slides from my perspective, working with people across industries, in startups, in independent businesses like real estate agents or other salespeople, and just share a couple of thoughts that I hope will give you some food for thought and perhaps make you think, maybe I need to think about this in a slightly different way, or maybe there's something else I might need to think about here that I can use or leverage to help me respond to situations like this more effectively. So I'll share 5 or 6 slides, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, can you see the slide with the title page on it? Yes, okay, great. Okay, so my feeling about handling objections is that not only are they a particular potential quagmire or a potential trap that you could fall into, you can actually think of them as the opposite, where handling an objection well is the best opportunity that you have to nail a customer for life. That is, you may be providing good service, they may be generally happy with you, but when they come up with something that's an objection, that's an especially
David, you got muted all of a sudden.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, cool. So my feeling is that objections, from one point of view, an objection is something that it could be a trap you fall into and you don't really know how to handle it. From the other point of view, it's really an opportunity to cement your relationship with somebody in a way that you might not get a chance to during the normal course of business, right? If the person just kind of cruising along, the transaction's going smoothly, they may not think that much of you. But when they come to you with any kind of an objection, that's the point where they're troubled. That's the point where something's not right in their world. And if you can nail your response at that particular time, that's where you cement them as a client for life. Because when they need you most, you were there. And so that's what we want to explore a little bit here today. So 2 things I'd like to say about objections, kind of truths, if you want to call it that. First, they're really just requests for more information. You've probably heard Chirag say that before. An objection is not really an objection. It's really just a request for more information, or what I say, maybe better information than they currently hold. But I think about it a little bit more than that. I think that an objection is actually a plea for comfort. And what I mean by that is when that person raises that issue with you, whether it's the beginning of the relationship and like they're asking you about your commission and they're not sure if they want to, hire you or not, or it's something later on, they're not in a comfortable spot. Something is uncomfortable for them. They're experiencing discomfort. And that's why they raise it to you. They're seeking some kind of comfort or equilibrium or, back to a kind of a steady state that they were previously in that they're not in at that particular moment because of pricing or because of the how slow it is to sell their house or whatever it might be. Second thing is at least 50% of objections in my experience in real estate and other fields require you to address two needs. Now, what's the second need? Very often we say, okay, the person says, why should I go with you at your commission when I can go with somebody else, cheaper? Well, that's true. Maybe they have a need for like a cheaper rate or something. But is that all there is to it, or is there more? If there is more and we're missing it, then we're really missing an opportunity to really cement that relationship in a way that makes you stand out above everybody. You never want to let an objection opportunity go over your head. Because once you've missed it, the client has an experience of being not connected to by you. Your single most important thing to create at every moment in time is an experience in your client of being related to by you. And if your client brings something to you, if he brings 2 or 3 or 4 needs, and you only address 1 or 2 of the needs and don't address the others, then what he or she experiences is someone who's not been completely related to, someone who's only been half related to. And that's unfortunately a very disconnecting experience. So have to ask ourselves, what is the nature of the need that the person may have when they come to you with the objection? Well, for most of us, when we think about objections, what we're thinking is the person needs more information. And that's true. If they say, can't we get a higher price than that in this particular market? What they're asking for is to get more information about the market and, how are we, what's our strategy here, that kind of thing. Certainly they're asking for more information in most cases. Sometimes they're asking for better information. That is, they have some sense of what the market is or what the situation is, but they don't have the complete picture, or there's 2 pieces of data that are kind of like, contradicting each other, and they don't know what to make of that. They don't know, how to make sense of what that is. And so they're asking for more information or better information in a way that allows them to make sense of what they're seeing that doesn't make sense to them at the moment. And so they're asking for a better level or a better type or a different type of information. But is that all they ever ask for? If we think of an objection as simply a request for more information or better information, we're leaving out part of what stimulates their coming to you with the objection in the first place. What else might somebody have a need for in the course of a transaction for you? Well, they might be experiencing fear. Why is my house not selling in this particular moment? There's a request for information there, that's true, but there's also this feeling of, oh my gosh, I thought this house was going to sell like this and it isn't selling. What's wrong with it? Is it ever going to sell? They're having an experience of being in fear or nervousness or anxiety. And if they're in an experience of nervousness and anxiety, and you don't manage that, you don't address that, they're going to have an experience of A, not being satisfied, but B, even worse, not being related to in the way that they're experiencing their life at that moment in time. What else? How about reassurance? Remember back in 2022 when everything was like selling like hotcakes, right? And it was all about, multiple offer situations, so many people struggling and getting outbid, right? What if someone came to you and said, I've been outbid twice now? What do they need? They don't necessarily need more information. They don't necessarily need better information, but they come to you and say, I've been outbid twice now. What they're coming to you for, perhaps, is reassurance. It's going to be all right. We're going to get the next one. But if you miss that, it goes over your head. They're going to have an experience of not being related to, because the experience that they're having right now is, let's say, self-doubt. So they might have a need for reassurance. How about companionship? If someone comes to you and says, buying a house is so freaking frustrating these days, are they just saying it? Are they just blowing off steam? Or do they have a need for someone to be there side by side with them to share that frustration? I'll propose that the very reason that they mentioned that to you was they were looking for something like that. It was that very need for companionship that instigated that conversation, the start of that conversation. Buying a house is so frustrating these days. And so it's up to you to listen carefully, to think about what is it that they're really asking of me at this moment in time. If someone says to you, buying a house is so frustrating these days, and you say, yep, sure is. Too bad. Boy, we got a tough market. Isn't that awful? That doesn't go anywhere, unfortunately, probably, if what they're really looking for is companionship. But a simple statement, something like, I know it must be so difficult and it's frustrating, and so many great houses, just like the ones you're looking for are going so quickly today, and we're going to find a way to find the next one, or something like that, that connects you to what it is they're experiencing in that moment, creates an experience of being related to by them. So it's really, really important for you to understand and decode what the nature of the need is whenever you hear an objection. It's not just about the words. Put that into more kind of specific, examples. What people say is not always what's on their mind. In other words, the words are not always the message. True? Of course, this happens in our personal lives too, right? Like if you're in your house sometime and your honey's trying on a new outfit or something, clothing or something, and your honey says, hey honey, how does this make me look? Or how do I look in this outfit? Right? They could be just asking you, well, how do I look? Well, you look terrible. I hate that outfit. It looks awful on you. But maybe what they need is reassurance, right? Maybe they're not sure that they look as good as they used to, or something like that. And so they're not really just asking you how I look. What they're asking for is for you to reassure me that I'm still good looking, or something like that, right? We could have experienced something like that perhaps in our life. And the same thing happens in business. If someone says, how long will rates stay this high? They might simply be asking for more information about rates and the rate environment. But they may actually be thinking, if I don't sell this house soon, I'm afraid I can't pay for my kids' college. That's what's generating the comment is, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out here. I can't pay for my kids' college because I can't sell this house. And so the words are, how long will the rates stay this high? But the message is something completely different. Similarly, why do we keep only getting lowball offers? I'm so angry that I expected to be retired for a year already, and I still can't sell my house for a reasonable price. Totally different message, which means their mind is in a totally different place. And if your mind is simply, why do we keep getting lowball offers? And you simply address that, you say, well, there's a lot of buyers in the market trying to get away with trying to get something for nothing. Yeah, thank you. That's obviously pretty obvious to anybody at this point, right? Including the buyer, including the seller. The buyer is so unreasonable for asking for a new boiler and roof. What's the person really thinking? Possibly, I can't spare $1 in revenue because my mother's got these healthcare needs, and I've got this 24-hour care for her around the clock, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. It's costing me, $600 a day and $20,000 a month. I can't spare $1. That's what's going on in their head. If you don't know what's going on in their head, you may not know your client well enough to know that that's where they really are. How about this one? Why can't you just do it for 2%? Are they simply asking for more information? Maybe. What they're really thinking is, my dream retirement home is asking $800,000, and I'm afraid I won't be able to get it if I have to pay 3%. And so the point here is, the words that you hear are very often not the message. And so handling an objection means understanding what is the message. Because if you believe that the conversation, that the message, that the objection is all about topic A, but it's really about topic B, and you do nothing about topic B, your client's going to be, very disappointed. They're not going to feel like they're related to it all. So addressing both needs means a couple of things. One, need to address the facts, no doubt about it. If somebody says, I don't believe rates will be substantially, if somebody says to you, why are the rates so high, or will the rates change, or something like that, you can say, I don't believe they're going to change that much in the next 6 months, and here's why. That's fine. You're responding to the facts because they may want more information. They may want better information. They may want the facts. But you may also have to respond to the feelings. I'm so sorry, and I can hear the disappointment in your voice. I know how important it is for you to sell the house to pay for Susan's college. You've talked about your dreams for her, and they must look really out of reach right now. This is not about the facts of the last deal falling through, right? This is not the facts of, the marketplace is not a good place for this person to sell their house at this particular moment in time. They're coming to you because they want to be able to fund their daughter's college because they never went to college, and their whole dream for their daughter is to go to college, and that seems to be further out of reach right now because of what's happening, with the house. The point here is you need to be paying attention and addressing both the facts and the feelings, the feeling experience of the person. And this is where I see so many agents, not just in real estate, other places. They answer the first question, they don't answer the second. If the person says, where do you think rates are going to go in the next 6 months? It could be just the first, just the facts. But if it's really about the second and you just give them the facts, you're screwed. You'll never create a customer for life. That's the point. As I said at the beginning, if you can nail these moments when it really matters to your client, when the very conversation is generated by an experience that they're having, and you nail that, the old saying by Maya Angelou, people will never remember what you did, they'll never remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And when you can connect to the feeling experience that they're having, when it's there, I'm not saying it's there all the time, certainly don't mean that at all. But when you can connect to that, you create a powerful experience of being heard, of being related to by them. It's the most powerful opportunity you have to cement that relationship forever. Because guaranteed, somebody will come up to you 5 years later and they're going to say, you know what, you really, 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 really helped me. And if you say, what did I do? They'll say, well, I don't really remember, but it was really good, right? They're not going to remember the details, but they will remember that when they needed you to be there, you were there. So what do you need to do? Well, there's a couple of things. If you want to kind of think of what are some bullet points for me to think about and keep in mind, are these. One, first, remember, this is one of the most important things. Remember that the words that are spoken are not always the words that indicate what the need is. The words do not always equal the message, right? If your spouse says, how do I look in this outfit? Right? What they're really saying is, please tell me that I still look beautiful, I still look handsome to you, or whatever, right? It's a completely different message. Second, understand the hidden need behind the words. Try to figure out what it is they're really looking for. Are they looking for reassurance? Are they looking for calming their fear or their nervousness? Are they looking for companionship? Are they looking to just vent? Are they looking for more information? Are they looking for better information? Are they looking for different information? It could be any one of these things. And I guarantee you over 50 objections of experiences that you have with people, all those bases are covered here or there. Sometimes somebody needs that reassurance. Sometimes they need that companionship. And if all you ever give them is facts and information, it's no surprise that they might not come back to you 5 years later, 10 years later. 3, paraphrasing, a really powerful tool that you can use in the moment. It's a technique that allows you to demonstrate to them that you are truly hearing and understanding what it is that they're experiencing. You're connecting to what their experience is at that moment in time. You're no longer just a paid, hired hand to help you and to help them get through this transaction. You're actually someone who's connecting to them as a human being in the moment that they need it most. In paraphrasing, you simply feed back what it is that you heard to the person in your own words, making sure that you were listening carefully enough to tell them, to prove to them that you were actually listening. I'm hearing you're upset about the current interest rates because you're afraid that you won't be able to X, Y, Z. Am I hearing that correctly? Or if somebody comes to you with an objection, especially if it's longer, you might say, can I just feed back what I've heard to you? I want to make sure I'm hearing it all correctly. Of course, they would say, sure. So then you say, first, I heard you say blah, 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 and this was important to you, and blah, blah, blah. You were confused about X, Y, Z. And your biggest concern in all of this, you mentioned, was that blah, blah, blah is going to happen. Did I hear that correctly? Yes, you did. Wonderful. Please continue. Or you could start the conversation. You could start this part of the conversation by saying something like, it's important to me to understand exactly what it is that you're experiencing right now. And I want to make sure I'm capturing it correctly from you. Can I take a minute just to feedback all that I've heard from you? And that's more useful, obviously, if it's a more kind of a longer diatribe, like they're kind of spewing a lot of information. If it's a simple one sentence question, obviously that's not necessary. But the point about paraphrasing is that you're actually demonstrating that you really were listening to what they had to say. And this is rare in life. Everyone needs to be listened to every day, multiple times by somebody. But it's very rare that we truly are. And in the times that we really, really need somebody to listen to us, which is almost always an objection situation, we need someone to understand that we're confused, that all is not right in our world, that we're on ground that isn't stable at the moment. We're not sure about interest rates. We're not sure about whether, the higher commission that you charge is really going to work out for me in the end. We're not sure about the pricing for the house. It means I'm on unstable ground and I'm looking to get back to stability. As Chirag has said many times before, our brains are wired for comfort. We want to get there. We want to be there. And when we're not there, obviously it's uncomfortable by definition. But this is where your handling of the objection becomes so valuable to you in building a customer for life. To be able to decode or to recognize what the real need is. And sometimes there's more than one need. They might need reassurance and companionship, for example. Or they might have a fear that they need to kind of help mollify in some way, as well as reassurance. Well, if you can give them that in the moment, powerful experience for them. And so paraphrasing demonstrates to them that you truly were listening and they truly were heard. And the good news is, if you really were listening well, even if you only get 90% of it or 95% of it right, they'll correct you. They'll say, well, I wasn't really frustrated. I was more irritated. Oh, got it. Okay, you were more irritated than frustrated. Now I got it. Thank you. Please continue. And you'll still be demonstrating that you heard 95% of what they said. And finally, be sure, this is what I'm saying here in all of this, make sure that you're addressing the facts and the feelings. You're telling me that you're not sure if Compass's services are worth more than a discount broker, and you are concerned about giving away more income than you have to. So the facts here is about whether the commission and the services are worth it. The feeling is concern. Concern is a word that we associate with worry, with nervousness, with anxiousness, with uncertainty, with fear. All those words are under the category of fear. And so you're addressing the person's fear that they may have to give away more income than they would somewhere else. And so if you just address the facts without the fear, they still go away from the conversation with that fear kind of residing inside of them. And that's not a comfortable place to be, especially if you really want to nail them as a customer for life. But if you can address the facts and the feelings, and this takes a little work and a little practice from many of us, because it's not something we typically do. And I'm not saying that you get all sappy and you start crying and it's become some emotional thing. I'm not talking about that at all. But being able to identify the emotional experience that they're having, whether it's nervousness, anxiousness, concern, fear, it's almost always in that fear category. If you think about a category, anxiousness, nervousness, discomfort, upset, stressed, all these words refer to some kind of a fearful potential circumstance or a fearful current circumstance. And in all these cases, you can address that. It doesn't mean you have to fix it. You can't take away their fear, but you can certainly acknowledge it. You can certainly stand there side by side with them. If someone is nervous that their house isn't going to sell on time for them to do X, Y, Z, you can certainly acknowledge that. It makes perfect sense to me that you're concerned about being able to get this transaction done in time. Anybody in your situation would feel that way. Let's do everything we can to make sure that happens, and we're going to start with X. Right? If somebody came to you with some version of that, you'd probably feel like, okay, this person's on my side. This person gets me. But you need to address it. Okay, so we're going to pause there. So I'm really curious. Please put into the chat anything that kind of pops into your head as a result of the conversation here. What is it that comes up for you as I talk about objections in this way? I see Keith. Yep. I have a seller who is emotionally attached to their portfolio over their need to sell to get out of debt. For sure. If somebody is in debt and they need to sell in order to help get them out of debt, absolutely. That's huge worry for them, right? I mean, absolutely. They're in that same fearful space.
Yeah, but the problem is that they don't want to sell. They're
Yep.
going through all these changes in their mind. They're lying to themselves
Yep.
about why they shouldn't sell because they've owned it for 30 years and all this stuff. But meanwhile, you're millions of dollars in debt and you
Yep.
have to sell.
Yep.
And that's
Makes
the
perfect
whole thing.
sense. Makes perfect sense.
So I've got them to sell 2 properties right now they have 19 and they sold 2 and we're working on another 7 right now. So it's been a slow thing, just dealing with reality with the people, you
Well,
know.
one thing for Keith and then for everybody is to recognize that that situation that they're in, not the portfolio financial situation, but the emotional experience of being there is going to continue for a long time, which means Keith is going to have lots of other opportunities to help address that. And it doesn't mean he has to solve it. He can't solve their financial problems, but he can be there standing side by side and he can communicate it to them in a way that they know that.
And, yeah.
I noticed Mary said, I take things at face value and will listen and probe more. That probing piece is so important, folks. It's really important not to just assume that you know where your client is. It's almost always, probably 90% of the time, worth it to ask a question or two. You know, some of the programs that I do for corporate groups, you know, when we want to help them understand and have better conversations, they adopt a rule called ask 2 questions, which is when someone's told you a story and you think you pretty much know it, don't just stop there. Ask 2 questions anyway. And you don't have to ask 2. You could just ask 1. A simple question, something like, you know, what's the most concerning part of all this for you? Or, you know, what would it feel like if you could overcome this issue? Or do you think about this at night? And if so, what part of it? A part about it, right? Does this keep you awake at night? Any question like that helps them understand that A, you want to understand them better, and B, that you're really cluing into what their experience is like. Because it's not just a transaction, folks. Your clients are having an experience with you, an experience of you, and it will always be that way, just like you have an experience of your doctor. You may have a great doctor who's really good at, you know, being the surgeon, but everybody wants a doctor who's also has that good bedside manner, right? It's not just about the surgeon taking out the right organ and doing it well. You'd like a doctor that you can have that kind of an experience with. And so managing your client's experience includes recognizing, going beyond sometimes the surface, recognizing all that they may be experiencing and being willing to go there with them, meet them where they are. Okay, everyone, it's 12 o'clock. I hope you found something in here to stimulate a little thought, and I hope that I can see you all again before too long. Best of luck to all of you. Have a great week. See you again soon.